Care for another round? Zora Ndiaye's voice sliced through the glass box's hum, her smile ablade. The black architect, 30, radiant in a blue silk blouse and white mermaid skirt, fixed her icy gaze on Gideon Hawthorne, her husband, and Selene Carver, his mistress. "You'll need it," she said, "because you've lost everything." Gideon's coffee cup clattered, spilling dark stains. Selene froze, eyes wide, speechless. The cafe's chatter stilled, all eyes on Zora as she slid a legal envelope across the table. Clause 37B, your access to my firm, my designs, my life, ends now. How did a genius architect unravel such betrayal? What drove her to this moment? Her story, a blueprint of pain and power, begins days earlier, promising a reckoning none could predict. The chandeliers cast golden fractals across the ballroom of Chicago's Palmer House, their light dancing on Zora Ndiaye's blue silk blouse as she moved through the crowd. The silk whispered against her skin, the white mermaid skirt flaring with each deliberate step, her heels clicking like a metronome on the polished marble. At 30, Zora, a black woman whose designs reshaped cities, was the evening star, though the weight of eyes, admiring, envious, felt heavier tonight. The Chicago Annual Architecture Awards buzzed with champagne flutes clinking and voices murmuring praise for Ndiaye Hawthorne, her firm crowned Firm of the Year. Yet as her fingers grazed the ankh pendant at her throat, a nod to her heritage, Zora sensed a crack in the night's perfection. Gideon Hawthorne, her husband of 7 years, stood beside her, his tailored tuxedo sharp, his smile sharper. At 35, his charm was a polished blade, slicing through the room's elite with ease. "To Zora," he said, raising a glass to a cluster of investors, his voice warm but practiced, "the genius behind our skyline." The crowd clapped, their applause a wave crashing over her. But Zora caught the flicker in Gideon's eyes. Not pride, but something darker, like a shadow cast by her light. Her pulse quickened, a faint tremor beneath her poised exterior, as if the room's foundation had shifted. She forced a smile, her lips curving with the precision of a draftsman's line. "We're a team," she said, her voice smooth, though her grip on Gideon's hand tightened. His fingers, usually steady, twitched, and she felt it, a hairline fracture in their bond. The room spun on, oblivious. Architects in sleek gowns, developers in crisp suits, all orbiting the power couple. Zora's navy gown hugged her frame, its elegance a quiet defiance against those who'd once dismissed her as too bold for the industry's old guard. She'd carved her place, her designs, glass towers that breathed, steel spires that sang, proof of a vision no one could ignore. Across the room, Selene Carver, 30, glided through the crowd, her red dress aflame against the muted tones. The young interior designer's sharp eyes scanned portfolios, her ambition a pulse in the air. Gideon's gaze lingered on her, too long, too deliberate. "Selene gets our vision," he'd said at last week's board meeting, his hand brushing her sketches with a reverence he hadn't shown Zora's in months. Now as Selene approached, her smile bright but calculating, Zora's stomach twisted, a rebar coil tightening. "Dr. Ndiaye," Selene said, her voice honeyed, "your work on the Ascension Tower is breathtaking. I'd love to collaborate someday." Her words were a blueprint of flattery, but Zora saw the angles, too sharp, too eager. "Thank you," Zora replied, her tone cool, her eyes locking onto Selene's. "Collaboration requires trust." Selene's smile faltered, a crack in her facade, and Gideon's hand stiffened in Zora's. The moment passed, but the air held a charge, like a storm brewing over Lake Michigan. A young architect, Kiana, hovered at the room's edge, her brown eyes wide with awe. At 24, her locks pulled into a neat bun, she clutched a sketchbook, her fingers tracing lines inspired by Zora's work. "She's why I'm here," Kiana whispered to a colleague, her voice soft but fervent. "A black woman leading this industry, it's everything." Zora caught Kiana's gaze, offering a nod that felt like a promise. She remembered her own early days, pitching designs to skeptical clients who'd questioned her credentials, her vision, her place. That fight had forged her, and Kiana's admiration was a spark she'd nurture. Gideon's voice cut through her thoughts. Celine's got a pitch for the boutique hotel project, he said, his tone too casual, his hand slipping from Zora's to gesture toward Selene. It's bold, like you used to be. The words landed like a poorly drawn line, jagged and careless. Zora's breath caught, her chest tightening as if the room's beams had buckled. Used to be, she said, her voice low, a warning. Gideon's smile didn't reach his eyes. You know what I mean. Safe designs sell better now. Her nails bit into her palm, the pain grounding her against the sting of his dismissal. The gala swirled on, cameras flashing, glasses clinking, but Zora's mind was a drafting table, sketching flaws. Gideon's late-night calls, his sudden praise for Selene, the way his touch felt like a blueprint fraying at the edges. She'd built their empire, her designs the soul of Ndiaye Hawthorne, but his words tonight, half compliment, half confession, revealed a truth she'd ignored too long. He envied her light, and envy was a crack that could collapse a structure. As they posed for a photo, Gideon's arm around her waist felt heavy, like a beam misplaced. Smile, love, he murmured, his breath warm but hollow. Zora complied, her lips a perfect curve, but her eyes drifted to the skyline beyond the ballroom's windows. Chicago's towers, her creations, gleamed under the night sky, unyielding. She was their architect, and no one, not Gideon, not Selene, could steal that. Yet as the crowd's applause faded, a whisper lingered in her mind. What else has he taken? The question was a line she couldn't erase, a design flaw she'd soon uncover. Zora Ndiaye stood alone in the penthouse, the city's skyline a silent witness beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The gala's glitter clung to her like dust, her blue silk blouse now unbuttoned at the collar, the white mermaid skirt pooling around her ankles as she kicked off her heels. The hardwood floor chilled her bare feet, each step a sharp echo in the vast space she'd designed. Lake Michigan's dark expanse mirrored her unease, its waves a restless pulse against the night. Gideon's words from the gala, like you used to be, cut deeper now, a jagged line in her mind. She traced the ankh pendant at her throat, its cool metal grounding her. Something was wrong, a flaw in the blueprint of their life she could no longer ignore. Gideon sprawled on the couch, his tuxedo jacket discarded, thumbs dancing across his phone. Just emails, babe, he said, his voice a casual sketch, eyes not meeting hers. The lie hung heavy, like a beam misaligned. Zora's fingers tightened around a wine glass, its stem fragile under her grip. You've been distant, she said, her tone low, testing the air like a draftsman probing for weaknesses. Gideon's gaze flicked up, then back to his screen. Work's brutal, you know that. His dismissal was a crack widening, and Zora's chest tightened, her pulse a hammer against her ribs. She turned to the window, her reflection a ghost against the city's glow, her mind trained to spot flaws now snagging on every detail. His late nights, his praise for Selene, his hand brushing her sketches. She retreated to her office, the click of her bare feet a metronome to her thoughts. The room was her sanctuary, sketches pinned to the walls, models of glass towers glinting under a single lamp. She sank into her chair, the leather cool against her skin, and opened her laptop. The screen's blue glow was harsh, a stark contrast to the gala's warmth. Sleep wouldn't come, not with that whisper from the ballroom. What else has he taken? Looping in her mind. She pulled up the boutique hotel project Gideon had assigned to Selene, her fingers steady despite the tremor in her heart. The 3D rendering loaded, and her breath caught, sharp as a snapped pencil. There in the virtual lobby was her double helix staircase, a ribbon of steel and glass, suspended midair, lit by delicate LED threads. It wasn't just a design, it was her soul, sketched years ago on a rainy night in their old apartment. She'd lain beside Gideon, her pencil tracing curves as she whispered, "This is our forever home." His eyes had softened then, or so she thought. Now seeing her vision in Selene's project, the betrayal cut deeper than any affair. Her fingers froze on the trackpad, her heart pounding like a jackhammer. This wasn't a mistake. It was theft of her trust, her dreams, her essence. A memory flickered, unbidden. 2 years ago, at her first solo exhibition, a critic had called her work a generational vision, bypassing Gideon's charm entirely. His smile had been tight, his eyes cold, a shadow of envy she dismissed as fatigue. She saw it now, clear as a blueprint, his need to dim her light, to claim her brilliance as his own. Her nails bit into her palms, the pain a tether to reality. "He's stealing my soul," she whispered, her voice a blade in the dark. The laptop snapped shut, the sound sharp as a guillotine. No tears came. Her eyes burned, dry and fierce. Zora's mind raced, a draftsman plotting a new foundation. She opened her private notebook, its pages worn from years of dreams. There it was, her staircase sketch. Dated, initialed, a vow to herself. She'd fought for her place in this industry, clients who'd questioned her credentials, peers who'd called her designs too bold for a black woman. That staircase was her defiance, her proof of genius, and Gideon had handed it to Selene like a cheap trinket. Her jaw clenched, teeth grinding. He didn't just betray her, he profited from her mind, funneling her vision to another. She stood, her silhouette sharp against the window's reflection. The skyline glittered below, her towers unyielding, her legacy etched in glass and steel. She'd built this life, this empire with every late night, every precise line. And now Gideon thought he could dismantle it, piece by piece, and give it away. Her breath steadied, slow and deliberate, like the first stroke of a pen on a blank page. "He's underestimated me," she thought, her pulse no longer frantic but cold, resolute. This wasn't a collapse. It was the prelude to a reckoning. Her fingers twitched, itching to act. But she held back, her architect's mind calculating. Confronting him now would be reckless. A design rushed to ruin. She needed evidence, a plan, a structure to bring him down. The city's lights pulsed outside, a map of her triumphs, and she knew. This was her foundation, and no one could steal it. But as she turned from the window, a whisper lingered, sharp as a draftsman's blade. "How much more has he taken?" The question was a line she traced to its source, no matter the cost. Zora Ndiaye's office was a fortress of shadows, the only light a cold blue glow from her laptop screen. The question that had haunted her in the penthouse, "How much more has he taken?" now fueled her, a spark igniting a firestorm. Her fingers, still trembling from the discovery of her stolen staircase design, hovered over the keyboard, not with fear, but with a fury sharp as a draftsman's blade. The blue silk blouse clung to her shoulders, the white mermaid skirt a silent anchor as she sat, her bare feet pressing against the cool hardwood. The city's skyline loomed beyond the window, her towers glinting like sentinels, reminding her of the empire she'd built. Gideon's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was an assault on her legacy, and she'd dismantle it with precision. She opened the company server, her login a quiet rebellion. The system blinked, a warning of an audit trail flashing red. Her heart skipped, a momentary crack in her resolve. Someone could trace her. She exhaled, steadying her hands, her architect's mind calculating risk as she would a building's load. Evidence first. She navigated to the boutique hotel project's files, her pulse a metronome. There it was, her double helix staircase credited to Selene Carver, time-stamped with Gideon's approval, her jaw clenched, teeth grinding. Another click revealed emails, stark and damning. Gideon to Selene, 2:17 a.m. "Take this sketch, develop it, it's gold." Attached was her design, her handwritten notes scanned like a lover's gift. Zora's breath hitched, the betrayal a knife twisting deeper. Another email buried in a thread. "Consulting fee, $10,000, wired to Carver Designs." Her lips curled, a bitter smirk. Celine's shell company, funding her sleek River North apartment. The numbers didn't lie. They cut like glass. Proof Gideon wasn't just cheating, but profiting off her mind. She copied the files to a private server, her movements swift, silent, like laying rebar in the dark. Each click was a brick in a new foundation, one she'd build without him. Her fingers paused, hovering over a folder labeled prenup. Clause 37B, a line she'd insisted on years ago, glowed like a weapon. Any ethical or financial misconduct voids partner privileges, pending board review. A memory flickered, Gideon laughing as she drafted that clause, calling it paranoid. "You're too brilliant for your own good," he'd said, his smile tight, his eyes flickering with that same shadow she'd seen at the gala. Envy, not love. She saw it now, a crack ignored too long, splitting wide. Her nails bit into her palms, the pain a tether to her resolve. "He thought he could steal my soul," she whispered, her voice a low vow in the quiet. She wouldn't confront him yet. Rage was a poor draftsman. She needed precision, a plan to bring him down where his charm couldn't save him. Her phone buzzed, shattering the silence. Amara, her friend and lawyer, her name a lifeline on the screen. Zora hesitated, then answered, her voice low. "Amara, it's bad." The words burned, acid in her throat. "He's stealing my designs, giving them to her." Amara's silence was heavy, then firm. "Zora, you're not alone. Tell me everything." Zora's throat tightened, but she recounted the emails, the payments, the staircase, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "It's not just betrayal," she said. "It's theft." Amara's tone softened, but her words were steel. "You're smarter than him, Zora. Plan it out. Don't let this break you." "I'm not breaking," Zora said, her voice hardening like concrete. "I'm building." She hung up, her resolve a foundation setting fast. She dialed Olivia Vance, Chicago's sharpest IP lawyer, leaving a coded voicemail. "I need a consultation. Urgent. It's about protecting my work." The words were a vow, each syllable a beam in her design. Olivia's reply came at dawn, crisp and promising. "Tomorrow. Bring everything." Zora leaned back, her chair creaking in the quiet, her eyes scanning the prenup's text again. Clause 37B was her weapon, its ink a promise she'd kept to herself. A noise, Gideon's footsteps in the hall. Her heart lurched, but she closed the laptop, the screen's light fading like a doused flame. He knocked, his voice muffled. "Zora, you up?" She didn't answer, her silence a wall. He lingered, then retreated, his steps fading. She pictured him in their bed, oblivious, thinking her quiet was exhaustion, not strategy. He doesn't see the blueprint, she thought, her nails digging deeper. This wasn't a collapse, it was a controlled demolition, and she was the architect. Her reflection in the office window was faint, the skyline a map of her triumphs. She'd fought for her place, clients who doubted her, peers who'd scoffed at a black woman's ambition. Her designs had silenced them, and now she'd silence Gideon's betrayal. Her fingers twitched, itching to draw, to plan, to destroy with the same precision she used to create. The city's pulse thrummed outside, her towers unyielding. She wasn't just reclaiming her designs, she was reclaiming herself. But a whisper lingered, sharp as a pen stroke. What else has he hidden? It was a line she'd follow, a flaw she'd expose, no matter the cost. The morning light spilled through the coffee shop's windows, casting sharp angles across Zora Ndiaye's face as she sat across from Amara. The scent of roasted beans mingled with the tension in her chest, a tight coil from the night's revelations. Her blue silk blouse, now paired with tailored trousers, clung to her frame, the white mermaid skirt folded away like a shed skin. At 30, Zora's eyes, sharp as a draftsman's pen, held a fire that hadn't dimmed since her office vigil. The question that had burned through her sleepless hours, what else has he hidden, now fueled a plan, precise as a blueprint. Amara, her friend and lawyer, stirred her coffee slowly, her dark eyes searching Zora's face. "You look like you're designing a war," Amara said, her voice low, laced with worry. Zora's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Not a war, a demolition." Her voice was steady, but her fingers, wrapped around a cooling latte, trembled slightly. The evidence, Gideon's emails, the payments to Selene's shell company, Clause 37B, lay heavy in her bag, a legal arsenal she'd forged in the dark. Amara leaned forward, her braids catching the light. "You've got him, Zora. The emails, the transfers, it's ironclad. But this—" She paused, stirring her coffee again, the spoon's clink a soft warning. "This will tear down more than your firm. Are you ready for that?" Zora's gaze drifted to the window, where Chicago's skyline loomed, her towers a testament to her fight. She'd clawed her way through an industry that had once dismissed her, a black woman with too much vision for their sterile boardrooms. Gideon's betrayal wasn't just theft, it was an echo of those early slights, a blade aimed at her soul. Some structures are built on faulty foundations, Amara, she said, her voice low, resolute. They have to come down to build something stronger. Amara's eyes softened, but her nod was firm. Then let's make it airtight. Olivia's ready to move when you are. The words were a spark, igniting Zora's resolve. She pulled out her tablet, its screen a canvas for her next move. Her fingers danced across it, drafting an email to her assistant, CC'd to Gideon. Reserve a quiet table at the Glass Box, 3 p.m. Friday. Meeting with Sterling Group reps for their new skyscraper. Confidentiality required. Each word was a line in a trap, calculated to lure Gideon's ego and Selene's ambition. The Sterling Group was a whale in real estate, a prize Gideon couldn't resist. She pictured his face, smug at the gala, praising Selene's bold ideas, her ideas stolen, her jaw clenched, the latte's bitterness sharp on her tongue. Amara watched, her spoon still. You're playing chess with a checkers player, she said, a faint smile breaking through. But what happens after the board flips? You're not just ending a marriage, Zora. Zora's chest tightened, a hairline crack in her armor. She saw it then. The rainy night she'd sketched the double helix staircase, Gideon's hand over hers, his laugh warm as they dreamed of a future. That memory was a wound now, raw and pulsing. I'm ending a lie, she said, her voice softer, edged with pain. He chose to steal my soul and call it business. I'm taking it back. She hit send, the email's soft chime a hammer striking steel. Her pulse thudded, adrenaline surging like a draftsman's pen, tracing a final line. Amara reached across the table, her hand warm on Zora's. You're a force, Zora, but don't let this consume you. You're more than his betrayal. Zora's throat burned, but she swallowed it, her ankh pendant a cool weight at her neck. I'm not consumed, she said, her voice steel. I'm creating. Amara squeezed her hand, then let go, her smile a quiet promise of support. Zora stood, her bag heavy with evidence, her mind sharper than ever. The coffee shop's hum faded as she stepped outside, the city's pulse greeting her. Her heels clicked on the pavement, each step a beat in her design. The glass box loomed in her mind, its transparent walls the perfect stage for Gideon's ruin. She pictured their faces, Gideon's charm faltering, Selene's confidence cracking, when she'd unveil her hand. A memory stabbed. Gideon at her first exhibition, his smile tight as critics praised her, not him. She'd ignored that envy, softened her edges to fit his frame. No more. The skyline stretched before her, her towers gleaming under the morning sun. She'd built them through doubt, through dismissal, through every whispered, she's too much in boardrooms. Now she'd build justice with the same precision. Her phone buzzed. Olivia's text. Meeting confirmed. Bring the proof. Zora's lips curved, not a smile but a promise. The trap was set, its lines drawn in steel and glass. Gideon and Selene thought they were players in her world. Soon they'd see there were flaws in her design, soon to be erased. But a whisper lingered, sharp as a pen stroke. Will this be enough? It was a question she'd answer in the rubble of their deceit. Zora Ndiaye's heels struck the pavement like a hammer driving nails, each step a beat in the blueprint she'd crafted since dawn. The Glass Box Cafe loomed ahead, its transparent walls gleaming under Chicago's afternoon sun, a stage set for truth's exposure. Her blue silk blouse shimmered, the white mermaid skirt swaying with purpose, her ankh pendant a cool weight against her chest. At 30, Zora, a black architect whose designs reshaped skylines, carried her evidence like a loaded weapon. Emails, payments, Clause 37B, tucked in the slim envelope in her bag. The question that had lingered since her office vigil, will this be enough, faded against her resolve. This wasn't vengeance, it was justice, and she'd deliver it with the precision of a master builder. Inside, the cafe's hum softened as she pushed through the glass door. the chime sharp as a snapped beam. Her eyes found them instantly. Gideon Hawthorne, her husband, and Selene Carver, his mistress, heads bent over a tablet in the corner, their closeness a blueprint of deceit. Gideon's laugh faltered, his coffee cup pausing midair as he spotted her. Selene's gaze darted up, her red lipstick stark against paling cheeks, a flicker of guilt in her wide eyes. Zora's pulse thudded, not with fear but with the clarity of a plan snapping into place. Her lips curved into a smile, polite yet lethal, as she approached, the click of her heels a drumbeat on the polished concrete. "Care for another round?" Zora asked, her voice smooth as glass, pausing just long enough for their unease to settle. Gideon's cup clinked against its saucer, his fingers unsteady. "Zora, what are you doing here?" His tone was too bright, a salesman's pitch cracking at the edges. "We're just reviewing the hotel project. You know Selene, right?" Selene nodded, her smile tight, her hands gripping the tablet like a shield. Zora's gaze flicked to the screen, knowing her stolen staircase glowed there, a theft disguised as innovation. Her stomach twisted, but her face remained serene, a mask honed by years of boardroom battles. She raised a hand, cutting off Gideon's stammered explanation, her smile unwavering, her eyes cold as steel. "You'll need it," she said, her voice dropping, each word a brick in a collapsing wall. "Because you've lost everything." Gideon choked, coffee splattering across the table, his cough ragged. Selene froze, the tablet slipping, clattering softly against the chair. The cafe's chatter dimmed, heads turning, eyes prying through the transparent walls. Zora reached into her bag, her fingers brushing the envelope, heavy with proof. She slid it across the table, deliberate, letting it rest beside the spilled coffee, its edges soaking brown. "Clause 37B, she said, her tone clipped, a final nail driven home. "Your access to my firm, my designs, my life ends now." Gideon's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. "Zora, wait! What the hell is this?" His voice cracked, desperation leaking through, his eyes once warm, now pleading. But she saw the truth, guilt, not love. Her skin burned under his touch, a memory of their old intimacy twisting like a knife. She pulled free, her wrist stinging, her voice low. "You chose to steal my soul and call it business. You're done." Selene's voice broke the silence and small, trembling. "Zora, I thought it was his idea." Her words were a flimsy scaffold, collapsing under scrutiny. Zora's gaze flicked to her, sharp, unyielding. "You wanted my place, Selene, but you'll never have my vision. You chose the wrong partner." The words sliced clean, leaving Selene's eyes glassy, her hands twisting a ring on her finger. The cafe was a stage now, its glass walls exposing their ruin to Chicago's elite. Zora stood tall, her blouse a navy fortress, her pulse steady despite the storm in her chest. She turned, her heels clicking, the door's chime ringing as she stepped into the sunlight. The air hit her face, cool and sharp, and she inhaled deeply, her chest expanding. No tears fell, but her eyes burned, the weight of her triumph heavy. She slid into her car, the leather cool against her skin, and gripped the wheel, knuckles pale. A single tear escaped, hot and angry, not for Gideon, but for the dream she'd had to shatter. A memory stabbed. Rain on their old apartment's window, her sketching the staircase while Gideon watched, his eyes soft. That intimacy was ash now, but she was steel. The glass box faded in her rear view, its transparency mocking the secrets it had held. Gideon's muffled voice called her name, frantic, fading. Zora's lips twitched, not a smile but a resolve. The skyline stretched before her, her towers unyielding, each one a testament to her strength. She'd planned for this, every angle calculated, every beam reinforced. Gideon thought he could steal her foundation, but he'd learn it was unshakable. Her phone buzzed, Amara's text. "You okay?" Zora's fingers hovered, then typed, "I'm free." The tear dried, her jaw tight. The next move was hers and she was ready to build, but a whisper lingered. What will it cost? Zora Ndiaye's heels echoed through the penthouse, each step a hammer forging a new foundation. The glass box's sunlight still burned in her mind. Gideon's spilled coffee and Selene's stunned silence, a blueprint of her triumph. But the question that had surfaced in her car, what will it cost, lingered like a faint crack in her resolve. She stood in her office, the city's skyline glittering beyond the windows, her navy blazer sharp over a fresh silk blouse, the white mermaid skirt stored away like a battle-worn banner. At 30, Zora, a black architect who'd reshaped Chicago's horizon, felt the weight of her victory, solid but heavy. Her Ankh pendant gleamed, a reminder of her roots, her fight, her unyielding will to rebuild. The morning air carried a faint trace of Gideon's cologne, a ghost she'd soon erase. Her phone buzzed, Gideon's name flashing, 3 missed calls, texts pleading for a talk. Her thumb hovered, then swiped them away, her jaw tight. "You don't get to rewrite this?" she murmured, her voice a low vow. She sank into her chair, the leather cool against her skin, and drafted an email to her team. Emergency meeting, 5 p.m. Critical updates. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of dismantling a life she'd built with Gideon, brick by brick. Yet she was no longer that woman, softened to fit his frame. She was the chief architect now, and she'd design her future alone. At the office, the boardroom's sterile light bathed 30 faces, their eyes fixed on Zora. Her blazer was a shield, her voice a blade as she stood at the head of the table. "We've uncovered serious financial and ethical violations by Gideon Hawthorne," she said, her words clipped, deliberate. "Effective immediately, he suspended pending investigation. This firm is now Ndiaye Design Group. Our mission, creativity, integrity, remains unchanged." A murmur rippled through the room. Not panic, but awe, as if the room's beams had realigned under her command. Kiana, the young black architect, stood, her locks catching the light. "We're with you, Dr. Ndiaye," she said, her voice steady. "Always have been." Zora's lips twitched, a flicker of warmth breaking her steel. "Thank you," she said, her gaze sweeping the room, meeting eyes that trusted her vision. She'd faced boardrooms like this before. Clients who'd doubted her, peers who'd whispered she was too bold for a black woman. Those fights had forged her, and now her team's faith was a cornerstone. Javier, another junior architect, raised a hand. "What's next, boss?" he asked, his grin a spark. "We build something unbreakable," Zora said, her voice firm, a blueprint taking shape. The room nodded, their loyalty a scaffold for her new empire. Back at the penthouse, Zora called a moving service, her voice calm as she instructed them to pack Gideon's things, suits, watches, polished shoes, and store them off-site. The movers arrived, their efficiency a quiet violence, stripping his closet bare. His cologne faded, the air lighter with each box carried out. She stood by the window, Lake Michigan's dark expanse reflecting her silhouette, her fingers tracing the ankh pendant. This space, her design, was hers again. Every angle a testament to her precision, yet her chest ached, a hairline fracture in her resolve. A memory surfaced, Gideon laughing as they sketched late one night, his hand guiding hers. "We're unstoppable," he'd said. Now that laughter was a lie, his touch a theft. Her phone buzzed, Gideon again texting. "Zora, please, let's talk. I can explain." Her fingers tightened, the screen blurring for a moment. "Explain?" she whispered, her breath sharp. "You stole my soul and called it business." She deleted the message, her heart pounding like a jackhammer. Amara's voice echoed in her mind. "Don't let this consume you." Zora called her voice softer now. "Amara, it hurts more than I thought it would." Amara's tone was gentle, a tether in the storm. "You're human, Zora. Feel it, but don't let it own you. You're stronger than this." "I know," Zora said, her fingers brushing her cheek, dry but burning. "I'm building a fortress." She hung up, the movers' footsteps fading as they left. The penthouse felt lighter, but her heart didn't. A knock came. Security, handing her a note from Gideon, scrawled in haste. "I'm at the door. Let me in." She nodded to the guard, who delivered a small box of Gideon's essentials in the storage address. The door closed, its click a lock snapping shut. Gideon's voice echoed faintly outside, pleading, then fading. Zora's nails bit into her palms. He thought he could charm his way back, but she was done with his blueprints. The skyline glittered, her towers a map of her triumphs. She'd fought for this, every late night, every design that silenced doubters. Now she'd fight for herself. Her phone lit up. Olivia's text. Board's on your side. Legal's moving fast. Zora's lips curved, a promise, not a smile. The fallout was hers to control, and she'd build from the rubble. But a whisper lingered, sharp as a pen stroke. Will I be whole again? It was a question she'd answer in the lines of her next design. Zora Ndiaye stood in the boardroom, the city's skyline a jagged pulse beyond the glass, her navy blazer a shield against the weight of her triumph. The question that had lingered after her penthouse purge, will I be whole again, hovered like a faint echo, but her resolve was steel. At 30, a black architect who'd carved her name into Chicago's towers, she felt the air shift, lighter now without Gideon's shadow. Her ankh pendant gleamed against her silk blouse, a quiet nod to her heritage, her fight. The boardroom's sterile light bathed her team, their eyes steady, trusting. She'd dismantled Gideon's deceit in the glass box. Now she'd clear the rubble, brick by brick, to secure her empire. The courtroom loomed next, its oak-paneled walls heavy with judgment. Zora sat beside Olivia Vance, her IP lawyer, whose sharp eyes scanned documents like a hawk. Across the room, Gideon slumped in his chair, his once crisp suit sagging, his face etched with lines that aged him a decade. His lawyer argued, voice thin, claiming Zora's server access was illegal. Olivia slid evidence forward, emails, payments, Clause 37B, each page a beam in Zora's defense. Mr. Hawthorne misappropriated Dr. Ndiaye's intellectual property, Olivia said, her tone crisp as a snapped ruler. Illinois law avoids his claims. Gideon's eyes met Zora's, pleading. Zora, I made a mistake, he said, voice cracking. She leaned forward, her gaze cold. You made a choice. Live with it. The judge's gavel fell, a final nail in Gideon's ruin. Ruling for Dr. Ndiaye, he declared. Full control of Ndiaye Design Group. Equitable asset split adjusted for misconduct. Zora's chest loosened, not with relief but with closure, like a door locking shut. Gideon's shoulders slumped, his hands trembling as he scrawled his signature on the divorce papers. Her own signature, bold and elegant, was a line drawn in ink, unshakable. She stood, her heels clicking on the courtroom floor, each step a hammer driving her new foundation deeper. Gideon's voice followed, faint. Zora, I'm sorry. She didn't turn, her jaw tight. Love builds, Gideon. You stole. Outside, the city's pulse thrummed, her towers gleaming under a gray sky. Zora's phone buzzed. Amara, her voice a tether. You okay? Amara asked, concern softening her words. Zora exhaled, her fingers tracing the ankh pendant. I'm furious, Amara, but I'm not breaking. Amara's laugh was warm. You're a skyscraper girl, but don't skip dinner tomorrow. You need to eat, not just build. Zora's throat burned, a faint ache surfacing. Promise, she said, hanging up, her breath visible in the cool air. The courtroom's weight lingered, but her steps were lighter, her silhouette sharp against the skyline she'd shaped. Back at the office, whispers of Selene's downfall reached her. Fired from her firm, her name a cautionary tale, Selene had vanished from Chicago's design scene, her ambition a collapsed scaffold. Zora didn't gloat. She didn't need to. They'd built their own ruin. She sank into her chair, the leather cool, and opened her laptop. The screen glowed with new designs, curves defying gravity, gardens spiraling up towers. Her fingers twitched, itching to draw, but a memory stabbed. Gideon's hand over hers, sketching their first project, his laugh warm. That warmth was ash now, but the ache was real, a crack she couldn't seal. Her phone buzzed again. Kiana texting, saw the news. You're unstoppable, Dr. Ndiaye. Zora's lips curved, a spark of warmth breaking through. Kiana's admiration, her own journey as a black architect, mirrored Zora's early fights. Clients who doubted her, peers who dismissed her as too much. She'd silence them with designs that breathed, and now she'd do the same with her pain. She typed back, we're just getting started. The words were a vow, her fingers steady now, the ache receding like a tide. Zora stood, her reflection faint in the office window, the skyline a map of her triumphs. She'd fought for this. Every late night, every line that proved her worth in an industry that had tried to box her in. Now she was free, but the scar of Gideon's theft lingered, raw beneath her strength. Amara's words echoed. "Don't let it own you," Zora called her, voice softer. "Amara, I'm starting therapy next week. I need to unpack this." Amara's tone brightened. "Good. You're building a fortress, but let it have windows." Zora laughed, a small, fierce sound, her eyes burning but dry. The city hummed outside, its pulse hers. Her phone lit up. Olivia's text. "Legals finalized. The firm's yours." Zora's fingers brushed her pendant, her resolve hardening like concrete. She'd cleared the rubble, but this wasn't the end. Her designs, her legacy would rise higher, untouchable. She turned from the window, her heels clicking softly, the sound of promise. The skyline was hers and she was only beginning. But a whisper lingered, faint as a pencil stroke. What will rise from this? It was a question she'd answer with every line she drew, every tower she built. Zora Ndiaye stood on the 80th floor of the Ascension, her latest triumph piercing Chicago's dusk. The question that had lingered after the courtroom's gavel, what will rise from this, now answered itself in glass and steel. The city's skyline stretched before her, a tapestry of her resilience, each tower a line she'd drawn against doubt. At 31, a black architect whose vision had silenced skeptics, Zora wore a tailored blazer over a silk blouse, her ankh pendant catching the fading light. The betrayal scar lingered, faint beneath her skin, but it no longer bled. Her office, a sanctuary of clean lines she'd designed, hummed with the city's pulse. She traced the window's cool surface, her breath steady, heavy with a year rebuilt. The Ascension's skeleton rose below, dust and steel mingling in the air, her boots crunching on the construction site's gravel. A year ago, Gideon's theft had threatened to cage her brilliance. Now, Ndiaye Design Group was a beacon, its name on every architect's lips. Her face graced Architectural Digest, captioned "The Visionary Redefining Chicago." The Sterling Group contract, won on a crisp morning, was hers, a spire of glass and gardens, defying gravity. Her fingers gripped a blueprint, its curves a map of her survival. A memory flickered, Gideon dismissing her double helix staircase as too risky. She doubted herself then, softened her edges to fit his frame. Now her design soared, bold and unapologetic. Her phone buzzed, Amara's voice warm with teasing. "Still in that tower, dreaming too big?" Zora laughed softly, the sound small but fierce. "Always, but I'm grounded, Amara. Thanks to you." Amara snorted. "Grounded? You're a skyscraper, girl. Just don't forget to live." Zora's throat tightened, her fingers curling. Therapy, urged by Amara's gentle prodding, had unraveled her anger, her loss, teaching her to carry the scar without letting it define her. "I'm living," she said, her voice steady. "Promise." She hung up, her eyes burning, not from tears but from the hours spent sketching, building, reclaiming herself. Kiana stepped into the office, her locks pulled back, a sketchbook clutched tightly. At 25, the young black architect's eyes sparkled with the same fire Zora had felt a decade ago. "Dr. Ndiaye, I've got an idea," Kiana said, her voice trembling with excitement, fingers nervously tracing her sketches. She unveiled a design, a tower with spiraling gardens, solar panels woven like threads. "It's bold," Kiana said, hesitating. "Maybe too much." Zora's lips curved, a true smile. "Don't ever let anyone call your vision too big," she said, her tone firm, warm. "Let's build it." Kiana's eyes widened, her grin a spark. Zora saw herself in that fire, a black woman daring to dream in a world that had tried to box her in. The memory of her own early fights surfaced, clients who'd questioned her credentials, peers who'd whispered she was too ambitious for a black woman. She'd silenced them with designs that breathed, and now she'd pass that torch. Kiana's sketch was more than a blueprint. It was a legacy, one Zora would nurture. "You're not just designing buildings," she told Kiana, her voice a vow. "You're shaping what's possible." Kiana nodded, her fingers steadier now, her sketchbook a canvas for their shared future. A new email pinged. Sterling Group's CEO. Dr. Ndiaye, your ascension is extraordinary. Pitch for our next skyscraper? Her pulse quickened, a spark igniting. She dove into the design, nights blurring into days, coffee cups piling up. The boardroom pitch was a battleground, her slides projecting a spire that twisted like a flame, gardens breathing life into its core. This isn't just a building, she told the board, her eyes locking with each member. It's a statement. From collapse, we rise. The room erupted in applause, the CEO's handshake firm. It's yours, Dr. Ndiaye, he said. Her chest swelled, not with pride, but with purpose. Back at the construction site, the Ascension's frame gleamed against the stars. Zora's boots crunched, the air sharp with dust. A memory hit. Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin, reborn from fire and betrayal. I'm not so different, she thought, her fingers brushing the blueprint. The scar of Gideon's theft lingered, but it was part of her design now, a reminder to build with care, to trust with caution. Her phone buzzed, Olivia's text. You've won the firm, Zora, it's yours. Zora exhaled, her breath visible in the cold. Good, she said, her voice low, final. The skyline glittered, each tower a piece of her soul. She thought of Amara's words, therapy's quiet lessons. You are enough. Her lips curved, a fierce smile. The Sterling project was a beginning, not an end. The world waited, its horizons hers to shape. Her fingers itched to draw, to leave marks no one could steal. This is my foundation, she thought, her heart steady, her eyes bright. But a whisper lingered, soft as a pencil stroke. What more can I build? It was a question she'd answer with every line, every tower, every life she inspired. Zora Ndiaye's silhouette faded against Chicago's skyline, her towers gleaming, a testament to a woman who turned betrayal into triumph. Her journey from the glass box's searing confrontation to the Ascension's soaring heights speaks to resilience, to building from ruins. What did Zora's story stir in you? Did her unyielding spirit, her refusal to let theft dim her light, spark something in your own heart? Share your thoughts, your time, your place, your reflections in the comments below. Let's honor the architects of our own lives, those who rise from cracks to create. Thank you for walking this path with Zora, for witnessing her redraw the skyline. Her story lives in you now, and we can't wait to meet you again for the next tale of courage and creation. Until then, keep building,